Excuse me, Naomi.
Welcome to Nice Place to Brew with Jason and George, a show about all things beer.
Coming through.
Beer making.
Come on.
Come girl.
Coming through, girl. Coming through.
Happy Memorial Day, everyone. Welcome to A Nice Place to Brew. I'm Jason.
I'm George.
And also
I'm
with
Holly.
you. I'm Scott.
Today is
Yeah.
Memorial Day. And what's up? We decided we will keep our scheduled show, and we've got some stuff to talk about tonight. But thank you so much for joining us wherever you are, and I hope everybody has a very happy and safe Memorial Day out there that is filled with good food, hopefully some good beer, and hope all is well out there.
Agreed.
Yes. All right. What's everybody drinking today?
Sun King from Osiris. I'm just getting ready to crack it.
You are right back from Indiana, Mr. Pauly.
I am. I got home last night.
That's awesome. I want to hear all about that, but let's get through the
Let's get
beer
talking,
real quick.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you. I got some stories. So.
Sure, I'm sure you do. George?
Good old-fashioned home brew. I figure since we're going to be talking about staple ones we want to make, I should drink some home brew, and it is a wee heavy that I made a little while ago that I just emptied the keg and poured my porter into it. So
Nice.
yeah.
Scott?
Ready? Yeah, I'm drinking a Windy Brew PTSD IPA. Windy Brew is just maybe 20 minutes away from me. It's one of the smaller local breweries. It's actually they allow you to brew there. You go there and they have a couple of Blickman Brew Easies. And then you come back a couple of weeks later and you bottle and you take it home.
Nice.
But they have their own beer on tap as well. So I went there and got a keg. Brought it home.
I have lots of questions about that. We have something kind of similar here in Chicagoland, and this is something Pauly is very familiar with. It's referred to as the Chaos Beer. What? What's the acronym? Beer Club.
Chaos.
Chaos Club.
Beer Club.
Yeah, I remember them.
Yeah, it's
Those
Scott.
guys are awesome.
They are. Yeah, it's very cool. What you're describing, Scott, sounds like a lot like what they're doing, and I'd be interested to discuss that side by side.
Yeah, I'll send you a link so that when you're done, you
Cool.
can go check it out.
I am trying something new tonight, and I was gifted with a couple of cans this past weekend, and I am drinking something from a brewery called Double Nickel Brewing Company, and this is quite a colorful label. So check this out here.
Oh yeah, it is. Look at that.
Wow.
Yes. So the name of this beer is called Weekend Warrior. It's a hazy pale ale with an ABV of 5.8%, and it's bigger than typical can. This is not a 16-ounce can as I'd first thought. It's 19.2.
Whoa.
And
Okay.
I'm a packaging guy, and I didn't even know that they made cans that size. That's very interesting. If I have a second, I will go into Untapped and tell you what the IBUs are on this, because I'm kind of curious about that. This
I wanted
pours.
to bring up when you were talking about the places that you can go and brew.
Yeah.
There's a brewery, Saugatuck by Grand Rapids.
Never heard of
They
it.
have a
I'm
they
joking.
have a brew your own beer thing.
I didn't know Saugatuck did that. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yes, $300. They make 5 gallons. They put your name on a plaque on the fermenter right there in the center of the restaurant. And mostly people seem to do it for weddings with stouts so that they can open every year kind of thing. I guess it's a real popular gift thing for weddings and other things. But I just thought I'd throw it out there that there's another place that does it.
Mm-hmm.
And
They have pretty good beer also.
that's a brewery with some good distribution too. I mean, Saugatuck has beers out here. they've had, and Paulie, you can speak to this too. They have a blueberry pancake, either stout
Oh,
or
God.
porter. It's like 5 or 6%, and it is delicious.
Will
Yeah,
County just made one of those blueberry pancake stouts.
That's true. That was for their anniversary.
Isn't Saugatuck the
Yep.
one that does the Starburst?
I think so. Yeah.
I remember
I
that
think
being
they do the
really good.
Neapolitan too.
Yeah, they do the Neapolitan. I know
The
that's one of big
Neapolitan.
sellers.
Yes,
They do in the
Neapolitan.
winter.
That's another really good one.
Yeah.
Anyways, before we go any further, I want to give out our website and our social media links. Check us out on the website at www.aniceplacetobrew.com. We have our social media at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nice Place to Brew and A Nice Place to Brew. We have a podcast on all the major podcasting platforms: iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from. Look us up at A Nice Place to Brew. We've got 40 plus episodes. And we do our webcast here every Monday and Thursday throughout the quarantine at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
Holidays be damned.
Holidays be damned. Exactly. No rest for homebrew and craft beer talk.
I know, right? I did enough of that this weekend anyway, so let's keep the ball moving.
Yes. We are going to talk in depth today about a recipe refinement and brew day refinement with recipes that we want to go back to and make as good as we can. Before we do that, though, Paulie, I have to know about your weekend.
All right. Well, it was really fun. I guess me and my buddy were both like, let's rent a car and go down. He's like, I'll rent a little small economy car. I'm like, fine, whatever. He shows up 7:30 in the morning yesterday with a 2020 5.0 Mustang. I'm like, are you serious? We're going down to Indianapolis in this thing. So we get down, we start driving down, having a good time, and we stop at a rest area. There's a food truck set up in a rest area just north of Lebanon, Indiana. I thought that was ingenious and a moneymaker. And started driving around the track, and it was almost surreal. A place where I'm used to seeing 250 to 300,000 people wandering around. There's maybe like 100. Yeah, for the Indianapolis 500.
Right.
And we went down. We saw some people hanging out the main gate. So we drove around. We took some pictures. I'm sure you guys all saw them, the funny stuff that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And but then I guess the icing on the cake was right when we were getting ready to leave, we see people walking around getting ready to come out. Doug Bowles, the president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, came out to talk to the 20 or 30 of us hanging outside the actual gate.
Is that
And
who is
him
wearing the suit in the pictures?
Yeah.
Wow.
The guy. No, that was the guy. That was the guy in the shirt and tie, not the tall guy in the suit. I didn't know who he was.
Okay.
I just know Doug Bowles because he does all the social media stuff.
Okay.
Like during Carb Day, he did a thing because Carb Day they always have bands playing, and he did a little thing with members from Poison, Styx, Foreigner, Cheap Trick, and 38 Special, where they did like a little Zoom meeting for like an hour on Facebook Live. And that's why I saw him coming out in a mask. I'm like, oh my goodness, you don't have no idea who this is. And I knew who he was. And I was like, started talking, one of the nicest people in the world, just came out, talked to us, stood for pictures. That last picture was me and the 3 suits from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway coming out to say hi. They gave us all freebies. I got myself a free flag. My buddy got myself a free koozie with yesterday's date on it for the Indianapolis 500.
Okay.
So
that'll be a collector's item someday, guaranteed.
Yeah, exactly. So it was definitely a lot of fun. Well worth going down for the day,
This is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first year ever that there has not been an Indy 500 since it started. Is that correct?
No, it's still going to happen.
No. I mean, what I'm saying is, since it began, this is the first year that it is not, or it's just, yeah, you're right. It is going later this year. This is the first time it's not happened at the same scheduled time. Is that right?
There's 5 years it was canceled. 4 to 5 years it was canceled during World War II for the
Okay.
war effort.
Okay.
That's why they have the 100-year anniversary, which was in 2009, and then 2015, I believe, was the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500.
What? Oh, jeez. I honestly didn't know it was that old. Holy crap.
Yeah. So, it's kind of one of those things. I met people that have been there, like this would have been their 51st race in a row. Can you imagine going to the same place 50 years in a row? And then all of a sudden we got to wait till August? I mean, I thought I was traveling far from Joliet. I met people that were like an hour north of Toledo in Michigan that drove all the way down to, to see the race. Or to come down and hang out. They had a beautiful little 1-year-old husky named Indy. She was adorable. She really was.
We named the dog.
We named the dog Indiana.
That is
Yes.
awesome.
Right? Nice. We both had to unmute for that too.
Indy.
We did.
Actually, my wagon, like if you look at the pictures, my wagon is named Indy. That thing's been coming with me for 15 years. That carries our heavy ass cooler to the track. Because at one time when you had general admission, they didn't have a cooler size. And as long as you didn't have cans, you can bring in whatever you want. Or as long as you didn't have glass, you can bring in whatever you want.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
I'd show up with two and a half cases of beer for like the 10 or 15 of us.
Yeah.
And that cooler is very fucking heavy on the way in. Way
With
out,
that
it's
much
light.
beer? Yeah, it would be.
That's why we came, and we saw everybody out there, and everybody out there, they have wagons. So we bought a wagon. And now that wagon actually has been to more Indianapolis 500s than the actual owner of the said wagon.
Now, when we talk about wagons, we're talking like radio flyer wagons, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a little radio flyer. I see people trick them out, big wheels on there. Last year, I saw somebody that took their little wagon and made it look like an Indy car. As far as had the air jacks, like you hit a button, thing would jack up off the 4 wheels so they could change the tires on the wagon.
On the oh my God.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure you could go back to all my Indy posts. I actually got pictures of that wagon.
Yeah.
There's everybody's dragging them behind them, and then they won't let you bring in the track. So we zip tie ours, but people lock them to the fence, and you pray that they're still there 2.5 hours later when you come back. And we haven't had ours stolen yet. For 15 years, so.
For 15 years. That's awesome. Good trip overall.
We're about ready to go. Great trip. I met so many old timers. I actually met a guy to where he's gonna let me camp in his yard this year if I want.
Really?
Which is only like 5 miles away. Yeah. Because see, they actually built a neighborhood around this track. Like people used to live literally across the street from the racetrack.
Yeah.
And the whole neighborhood around there, the neighborhood embraces it. And people park $20. I could park at anybody's yard. I haven't paid for parking for the race course ever, except for or at the actual parking lot. I'll park in somebody's yard every year, and then I can always get their number and call them. Hey, I'm coming down this year. Save me a spot, and they'll save me a spot. It's a big community. It really is.
Yeah.
500 is definitely a community.
So
I mean,
you may be able to speak to this better than me, but I remember reading an article within the last 1 or 2 years about the tradition of the Indy 500 taking that milk swig after the race is over.
Yeah.
Do you know this story?
I do. I don't know exactly when the tradition started, but it's been going for at least 30 or 40 years.
I think it's way older than that.
I think it is. You're right.
I'll have to look it up. But I think if I remember right, I think one of the original race sponsors was a local dairy farm, and I think it was a donation from the first year they were sponsoring the race, and then it just caught on there.
That might make sense because the story that I know and read is whenever that tradition started, whoever won that race they asked him like, "Hey, you look awfully thirsty. What would you like?" Ice cold glass of milk. And that's where I've heard the tradition started from.
It started in 1933 when Lewis Meyer, after winning his second Indy 500, had a tall glass of buttermilk in Victory Lane to cool off. Apparently, his mother told him the best thing to drink on a hot summer day is buttermilk. That's the first thing that comes up online when I looked at it.
All right, well then I guess my story's true. Unless it's like a whole thing. It's a big conspiracy.
Why did I think that it was there was a sponsor involved? Maybe there still is. I got to find. I'll see if I can find that. But
well, I'm sure there's an official company.
I thought some dairy was somehow involved.
Yeah, there's some company that officially that supplies the milk every year.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I thought was really cool. I don't know if you saw this year because the way things are going on with the whole virus and everything, and they're having because Speedway, Indiana, is an actual town that's around the track. It's not the track's not actually in Indianapolis. It's in Speedway, Indiana, which is a suburb of the race of Indianapolis.
Now, do people actually live in this Speedway, Indiana town?
Yeah. It's a small little town. It's like a subway or suburb. I mean, it's got its own police station, its own fire department, its own schooling system. But the high school, which is like 3 or 4 blocks away, from what I heard this year, because social distancing and everything,
right?
They decided to have the graduation for Speedway, Indiana this year. All the seniors from high school that they held it at the Speedway. You can, it's big enough, you can do the social distancing and all that.
Okay.
And the gift for graduating this year was an actual glass of milk. You know, with the commemorative 2020 graduation year.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome.
Right?
What's a more perfect tie-in to the race and just the victory of making it to graduation. That's awesome. Well done.
Yeah.
Whoever came up with the idea that was spot on. Well done. All right.
You know, me and my buddy were joking. If we ever won the lottery, we were going to buy a house down there just so we have a place to go and stay once a year, an Airbnb the rest of the year.
Yeah,
and just go down, have our own house. Everybody come down and hang out. You know, I got private property. We can do whatever we want. Sure. I've seen crazy things. I've seen stripper stages. You have no idea the things I've seen at the Indianapolis parking campground.
I believe that. Yeah, I totally do. All right, to put a cap on this before we segue back into craft beer and home brewing, the Indianapolis 500 this year is being rescheduled for a certain weekend in August, correct?
August 23rd.
August 23rd.
90 days from today.
90 days from today. Let's all keep our fingers crossed that nothing changes in the overall landscape that impacts that, because that would be a very nice thing to see the Indy 500 be able to complete this year. Considering that all of our other sports are still a gigantic question mark that doesn't seem to be clearing up in any meaningful way. That'd be very cool to see the Indy 500 be able to come to fruition somehow and in the time frame they're talking about.
Hey,
Roger.
The Cubs are still undefeated, and the Sox haven't won a game yet. So,
well, you can flip that around and say the same thing.
But one more thing, just to say that, thank you for saying that, Jason. The owners of the track said if we have to bump it back till October, we'll do that. They can race up until like mid-November before it starts snowing. If it has to be down to that, Indianapolis 500 will happen this year if it keeps getting pushed back.
Okay. Good then. Good
so,
deal.
That being said, all right, let's get on with recipe. Sorry, I was like looking at my old recipe Bible.
No, no, it's all good. No, that's an appropriate thing to be looking at right now. So today's topic is going to be, as I've mentioned before, recipe refinement, and looking back at old recipes and seeing how we can refine and improve technique and make a product that is better than what we made before. this is spawned from a discussion on a couple of different shows now, and that's going to be the core focus for the rest of the show. George, I think you are primed and ready, being that a lot of this discussion centered around you. So I'd like you to kick this off.
Okay. Yeah, like you said, I mean, this is about staple beers and what we want to refine, because my personal feeling is, after a bunch of experimentation, figuring out how your equipment works, what styles you like and everything, the next logical thing to do is to then go about refining recipes, doing things over and over again, and figuring out what works and what doesn't, and how you can best refine your recipe and essentially refine your craft. So I looked at the beers I've made and came up with 3 that I want to set up myself as my standard offering at my house. So if you come to my house, there'll always be these 3 on tap is the idea. Tells me I'm going to need a different Keyser setup, but that is subject for a different time.
Another project.
So, yeah, I know. So I looked at it and I said, what 3 things would I want to do that would exemplify, what I see as my brewing style, what I like to drink and everything. And I came up with these 3. What I'm calling my deck building shandy, which is a lemon lime shandy, a Vienna lager that I've made here, and my Belgian blonde that we recently tried on the show here. And if you notice a bit of a pattern between them, it's really easy drinking. You can have a couple of them, but not necessarily weak beers that are the American lagers and things. So looking at them, the oldest one that I have on that list is my deck building shandy, which did help us in building the extension onto my deck that I have at my house now. And let me share that. And Jason, I think you we'll need to change our viewing setup. There you go. Can you see that, or should I blow it up?
It looks pretty good here.
Yeah? Okay.
And does somebody want to check the YouTube and see how that shows up there?
I can't see nothing. I might have to blow it up. Can I blow it up personally?
Nope. How's that?
Right?
Look,
I can see that now. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right.
Yeah.
So I do 5-gallon batches at my house, and so this is one that I made 2 summers ago that used a bunch of different types of grains and everything to create a somewhat complex grain profile, but also one that was nice and clean and had some interesting notes to it. So if you notice, most of it is the base malts are, pale malt 2-row and white wheat to create that nice kind of semi-German wheat type flavor. A little bit of rye malt, Munich 11 to add in some character and some head to the thing, and some flaked wheat as well. And so that's my kind of my malt profile, and then I went heavily on the German noble kind of malts and used Tettnang as both bittering and flavor hops, since that is not meant to be a very high IBU beer. And a California Ale WLP01 for the yeast, which was put through a starter. So it wasn't just one package pitched, and that's true about all of mine. For the fruit, 1.5 lemon and lime in the secondary, and by that I do mean the rind as well as the juice from those got put into the secondary.
Do you muddle it at all?
I have a what is the or citrus reamer that I reamed the juice out and then used that in the pitch. I didn't just throw the fruit in. Thought about that, but I didn't want the pith to influence the beer at all. So this, I'm definitely open to suggestions on this. I think it came out really well. It was very light, very kind of fruity, but still had beer character to it. I did dial back the fruit a little bit. Originally, it was 2 of each of the lemon and lime, but that was a little much for the recipe. So I did dial that back a little bit. So in remaking it, one of the things I've done is I made this a full 5-gallon batch, which before this was a 3.5. I was making smaller batches before because I was the only one around to drink them. But now I have people to send them to, homebrew clubs and things. So I did upgrade this to a full 5-gallon batch, and I have basically scaled the recipe to match that. So first impressions, guys.
Why is the rye in there?
That was going to be my question.
Yeah, the rye was in there just to add a little bit of character to it, because the pale and wheat malts I was afraid was going to be too light. So the rye was to add a little bit of more of that malty kind of rye character to balance with those as well as with the fruit.
And you like it like that?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe the only thing I would maybe say is
Mhm.
because a lot of times people make wheat ales, you split the percentages between your pale malt and your wheat malt. Like I've played with that a few times, and I've noticed like if you split that, you roughly the same because like I've seen 2.5 and almost a little under about 2.25.
Right.
Maybe if you 4 and 4 or something like that, to that'll give you a good balance between your pale malt and your wheat malt together.
Okay. All right. That's a good idea.
And that would do good. Because actually that's what when I was playing with my wheat ale, I started doing that. And now I've enjoyed that base recipe so much that I have a fruit beer that I make, but I just add those little extract kits, those all natural extract kits.
Right.
But now I'm thinking about doing more of a all natural stuff.
Okay.
Like with actual fruit and what.
Right. Yeah, I definitely wanted to. I find with the extract kits when we've used them in the past that the fruit flavor doesn't stick around. It's like on your palate and then disappears. And so that's why I definitely leaned more towards the fresh fruit. At least that was our experience at the time, Jason. I don't know if
Agreed.
that was our brewing, experience or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I've talked to a lot of homebrewers about fruit in your beer. And, we've got the whole conversation of fresh fruit versus extract. And a lot of people, we've all come to the real agreement that if you do a 50-50 mix, it actually gives you the best of both worlds, too. Because the things that you're lacking in the extract, you get from the fresh fruit and vice versa.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. All right. So other than the rye malt question, Jason and Scott, did you guys have any?
So go ahead. Sorry.
So to jump in here, my area of concern with this, and I think you've already experimented with this and probably found yourself at the place you need to be, is you're dealing with 2 fruits that are very strong. Lemon and lime are not subtle fruits at all. So I think the challenge there would just be getting the right balance so as to not completely overwhelm the beer. Now, that is one thing that looking at this recipe, a lot of this stuff is going to become invisible because of the power of those fruits.
And that's part of the reason that I dialed them back a little bit. Yeah. Because like I said, that was 2 of each in a 3.5. Now it's 1.5 in a 5-gallon. Yeah. Because you're right. It was strong. And it wasn't overpoweringly so, but it was strong in there. So I decided to dial them back to try to compensate for that.
So just to be clear, have you made this recipe in this current form? to this point?
No, not yet.
You have not. Okay.
No.
So what you made had 2 full ones.
Yes.
Okay, got it. And that's been the only iteration of this recipe to this point.
Correct. But this is
Got
what
it.
I want to refine.
Okay,
So
all right.
yeah.
I think you're on the right track with that. I would be interested to see if at 1.5 if it's still very, very powerful.
Right. Yeah.
And
I mean,
I think you're just going to have to toy around with that. I don't think there's any other way to do it.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Okay. Scott, any quick
The
thoughts?
hops. The hops went with German hops there. Have you tried anything with citrus in the hop?
No.
I've never used lemon drop, but I hear good things about lemon drop. I've never used cashmere either, and I've heard good things about cashmere, both of them for lemon.
I've used cashmere, and so that's a decent idea. Yeah, back to what Jason was just saying, though, if that's adding lemony flavor and the lemon's adding lemony flavor, I don't want that to get overpowering.
You know what? But to Scott's point, I would encourage you, if you were to wanted to explore that hop, just take that off of the fruit edition. And I think that would be worth doing.
Or at least try it before you add the fruit.
Right. Okay.
Or
I think
name it
it's going to
Pledge.
taste more natural with that.
Or what, Scott?
Just name it Pledge.
Name it Pledge. Yes.
The lemon dusting
yes.
spray.
Yes,
Although
yes.
we have the Aldi version. I'm not sure what it's called.
All right. And then just these other ones, I'm a little bit more confident in the recipes. So that's still deck building, Shandy. I clicked on the wrong one. Vienna Lager.
Can I make one comment before we go to the next beer?
Yeah.
To Scott's earlier comment about the rye, I am on board that I don't think that's probably contributing in the way that it probably should.
Okay.
Maybe an idea to explore to substitute with that would be like a caramel 10. And then maybe if the volume is a little bit too light, then maybe you kick up the base malt just a little bit. Or as Paulie was saying, you're already possibly compensating for the added wheat. So maybe that's the thing to do.
Okay. That's interesting. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah.
Because George,
It would add
you want
sweetness too.
my wheat recipe, the basic one?
I'm sorry?
I want to hear my wheat recipe. I can't put it up on the computer because
Sure.
I'm looking at my old brew Bible from 10 years ago. Like when you were asking what I was doing, I was
No, I was just hearing. I was hearing it in the microphone. So no. Well, but to clarify, it wasn't meant to be a fruited wheat beer. It was meant to be more of a shandy that had some wheat character to it. You know what I mean? But I see where you're going with that.
So my grain recipe for the one that I've been working on for years, I actually did 10 pounds of white wheat. Okay, this is gonna be definitely a 10-gallon batch because I'm looking at the 5 gallons of white wheat, 4 pounds of 2-row, a little bit of Victory, and a little bit of Carafoam.
Okay.
That's all I did.
Okay.
And I think I may have later thrown my favorite, which is Golden Naked Oats, in there.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's definitely. Yeah. No, I understand. And as a wheat recipe, that makes total sense. Like I said, I'm not sure that's exactly what I was going for. I was going for a little bit lighter than that, but that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Moving on to the Vienna Lager real quick. So I have 10 pounds of Vienna malt. That's my base.
Can you zoom in?
Sure.
10 pounds.
Yeah, 10 pounds of Vienna malt from Brice. 12 ounces of caramel, 60. 12 ounces of Cara Munich. And then again with the Tettnang, apparently I'm a big fan of German hops, I'm now realizing. And Old Bavarian Lager, which is White Labs WLP 920. And I did definitely do a lager on this. I think it was a quick lager, but it was a lager on this. So, that's my recipe on that.
I remember drinking this too and being really impressed with it. So this one is really tough for me to suggest anything different because I think you're dialed in very, very well on this.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm definitely going to do differently on this one that I haven't done before is I'm not looking back from the Herms setup that I have. So I'm definitely going to do that. So one of the things it's definitely going to have is a much cleaner profile. When it comes to clarity and everything, what that's going to do to efficiency and everything, I'm not sure, but that's definitely going to be the case. Scott or Polly? Scott, I guess, because Polly
Yeah, I'm
left.
looking up the.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
I've never brewed a Vienna lager. So
Oh,
I
okay.
can't put any info. All right.
All right, no problem.
I'm looking up the old Bavarian lager yeast.
Oh, okay.
Because when I'm
Yeah.
thinking Bavarian, I'm thinking lighter. But this says used in beers such as Oktoberfest, Box, and dark lagers.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I remember
makes total
choosing
sense.
that one specifically, and this was meant to be because one of the packaged beers I like around here is Devil's Backbone Vienna Lager, and so this was meant to be not exactly a clone, but in that vein, and I was like Jason said, I was pretty happy with how this turned out. So
I was too.
I
One thing I
think
can't see on this, what was the SRM on this recipe?
SRM, what is it?
It's got to be on there somewhere. I mean, that
Yeah,
picture should
12.
be representative of it.
12 and a half.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, 12 and a half. And see, it's a really easy drinking, like 150 calorie beer. So nice and light. Okay.
7%.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the heaviest of all of them alcohol wise.
This is the one that we all had just recently.
This is the one you all had just
that.
recently. This is
3
about
recipes, 3 different Tetnang.
But this
buy
one
it by the
also
pound.
has Magnum in it.
Another one of the German noble hops. You are staying very close to that.
Reinheitsgebot runs hard, but so this is Pilsen malt, caramel 20, a little bit of white wheat, which is another thing I'm very fond of is white wheat. I think it adds really nice character to beers. Harlow Magnum for bittering and Tetnang for flavor, and then the Belgian Abbey 2 from Y Yeast, which is the 1762. And so, like I said, this is a little bit heavier on the alcohol, 7.2 versus the other ones were close to 5%. Another difference: this is a 90-minute boil, and just a little bit heavier all the way around. But I mean, you guys had it recently.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it turned out pretty well.
And you were saying you're using starters on your yeast for
Yes.
for all
Yep.
your liquid yeasts.
That has become my standard, is to use a starter. Yes.
Do you ever use dry yeast?
I have in the past, and I always have some USO5 in case I get a stuck fermentation. But for the most part, I use wet yeast.
All right.
Yeah.
You get a deal from them?
I'm sorry?
You get a deal from them?
No,
Or you just like
no sponsorship yet. But if an intrepid marketing manager is listening, let me know. But yeah.
dry yeast.
So these are the 3 that I think I'm going to try to refine. And one of the things now that I've decided I'm going to try to refine these is I want to try to do some yeast recapture and cultivating along with that. And so as far as I want to brew all these on the Herms setup, and I want to try to do some yeast recapture. But other than that, I think the next iteration, I don't think I'm going to change a whole lot and just see how they turn out and work from there.
This is one, and I'll stop short of saying that you absolutely should do this, but maybe it's something to think about. You are deviating from the traditional German style beers on this, and you're not making a lager. So I think sticking with the noble German hops as
Right.
you have in these previous recipes. I don't feel like this Belgian blonde is something that you necessarily have to stick with those on.
No, that's true. I could experiment with some different hops. I mean, this is not a very hop forward beer.
Correct.
It's very very malt forward, but I definitely could experiment with some different hops on this.
I think it may contribute some nice flavor depending on what you chose.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Tettnang there, I didn't even add that in the boil. That was during the whirlpool
Right.
of that. So, I mean, just to get a really nice subtle hop flavor to it.
As you can see, I'm digging deep with that. I don't have a whole lot. Nothing screams at me like, George, what are you doing?
Well, I
I
like to hear that, but
I think that's something you could do if you wanted to.
okay. So that's my 3. Yeah, nothing, no dark beers, unfortunately, Jason. I think that's going to have to be one of my seasonals if I, because I definitely want to have a seasonal that I do, but
The Vienna's kind of dark.
it's a little darkish. Sure,
Right?
we can put it that way. Yeah, darkish. Yeah. So
It is the darkest one of the ones you presented here.
it is, yes. So that's my 3.
Well, let's talk about technique before we move on. Like we just looked at a Belgian blonde, we looked at a Vienna lager, and we looked at the first one, the deck shandy.
Shandy.
So
Uh-huh.
this will be. You obviously have the recirculating pump system now, which will contribute nicely to each of those. Watch the fermentation temperature control, which I know you will, especially with the lager. What are the other? What else can we point out? I mean, knowing these recipes, what are some big red points maybe to watch out for as far as technique, like things you just simply can't miss?
With those 3 recipes?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'd
I
say
thought,
mash temperature.
yeah,
Yeah,
What?
mash temperature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your fermentation temperature, I mean, it's all about it sounds like you're dialing your ingredients. It's just about playing with water profile, maybe add a little bit more.
Yeah, I
gypsum or
definitely do
whatever.
that. Yeah, and I should, and I didn't write down what water profile I used. I should do that because maybe there's some stuff to tweak there as well. Yeah, I mean, I'll run it through brew and water like I always do, but yeah. But yeah, mash, to the point where I was thinking about with my Herm setup is if I can get the water at the strike temperature in the Herm setup, of adding the grain to the water instead of the water to the grain, since I'm using the Herm setup, and that way, I can be sure that the water is flowing at the right temperature.
That's a good idea, but like I've seen a few people do like that, and maybe it's just me and I'm stuck in my old ways. But adding water to grain to me just seems weird. I don't know, but I've seen people do it and they make great beers.
Yeah, I know. It feels like adding cereal. It feels like adding cereal to milk instead of milk to cereal. I get you, but
Agreed.
it's worth a shot. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, very good homebrewers I respect a lot. That's what they started at first, and every time they did it, I'm like, "What are you doing?" But I respect you, so I'm not going to say nothing. Fuck.
All right.
So what? As honestly, when I had friends start doing that, I respected. And I have to admit, it's been working at a local homebrew store. And with the club, going and doing brews with other people, because everybody does things differently, and sometimes you're like, "Oh wow," but you got your bottom line. You're making a quality beer, so if it works for you, go ahead. Maybe I'll learn something off of you too. It's a whole ever evolving of brewing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, who wants to go next?
Well,
I'll go.
Jason, did you get my messages? Okay, go ahead.
let me give you two beers that I make here that I tend to make over and over again. The first one is the sour that I make over and over again, which is a Berliner Weiss technically, but we tend to add lime to it rather than a raspberry syrup or a Woodruff. You can hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it is about as basic of a Berliner Weiss recipe as possible. It's and I up this. I started my notes here are 5 pounds of Pilsner malt and 3 pounds of white wheat malt. But now I throw in 8 and 3 and go up to 11 pounds because I want it to be strong and it's no longer a traditional Berliner Weiss. I want it to just hit like 5%. But when I brew it as a Berliner Weiss, it's about 3.5%. So 5 pounds Pilsner, 3 pounds wheat. And I introduce hops to it, but barely. Like I will literally take 0.1 ounce of hops, like a couple of pellets, and toss them in. But they make such a little contribution to it because it's a Berliner Weiss, and they are Tettnang on there. Yep.
There you go. My man.
And,
White wheat and Tettnang.
and then my German ale, Weist German ale, and I if I'm going liquid yeast, I generally prefer Weist because of the smack packs. And those make me happy, even if it's just because I feel like I'm doing something. I will generally make a starter. I don't for the Berliner Weiss. It's so weak as it is. It's practically a starter for other things. If it weren't so
True.
acidified by the time I add the yeast to it. So I've tried souring over time, and it took 9 months, 10 months to find out that, oh, that beer went bad. That sucks. So now I just kettle sour, and I'll use a Good Belly probiotic. Let me see if I can pull that up. Are you familiar with Good Belly probiotics?
Yes.
All right. So
Yeah, liquid probiotic, right?
the liquid probiotic drink.
Mm-hmm.
The mango one, no, the coconut one. It used to be my go-to because you would get zero coconut flavor in the end product, but I don't think they make that anymore. At least I can't get it around here anymore. So now I will either use the mango or whatever I can get a hold of. And if I use something like blueberry, it does come through. Very, it's in the back, but since I know it's there, like there's a little bit of blueberry in this.
Okay.
And then I hold it for 3 days at about 95 degrees, and that's enough to drive the pH down to about 3.2. Then I boil it and ferment it about 64 degrees for maybe a week, and that's it.
So how are you holding it at 90-some degrees for 3 days?
In my RoboBrew.
Okay.
Just leave it right in there and set the RoboBrew at 95. I will. I used to, when I first made this the first couple of times, I used to bring it up to a boil for 10 minutes, then run it through the chiller, and then hold it at 95. But what I've been doing lately, especially because I'm using distilled water when I'm making the Berliner Weiss, and I'll add back some brewing salts, but I'm starting distilled because our water here is perfect for a Vienna lager, but terrible for a Berliner Weiss. I will cold sparge with just distilled water over the top.
Okay.
So my cold sparge is cooling that at the same time, bringing it down to about 195 degrees. And then I'll throw in the Good Belly. I'll cover it tight with saran wrap, and I'll even blow in a little bit of CO2 into there. And the RoboBrew itself has a lid, so I'll put the lid on top of that. So the saran wrap is Star Sand and laying directly on top of the wort. And then I'll fill the top of the RoboBrew with some CO2. I have a little 2.5 pound tank down there, and then put the lid on the RoboBrew and leave it there for 3 days.
Mm.
Yep. And I sometimes I pre-acidify just to make sure that it's down.
I guess my question and one of the things that I, because like especially with plastic fermenters or even some of the
I don't
like
use plastic fermenters. But go ahead.
like the catalyst is a plastic fermenter.
It is.
So for that, do you have a separate fermenter that you use for that, or
No,
No?
because by the time it's soured, you boil it. Everything gets killed.
everything gets killed? Okay,
So
so
it
then you
goes
don't have to
through
worry
a
about.
90-minute boil after the souring.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your hop additions and what is your hop kiss? Your
My
that you do.
Tettnang at 60
Oh, Tettnang. That's right.
again
Okay,
is
All right.
nothing. I do it more for tradition than anything. To be called a
Okay.
beer, it had to have hops in it, even though a Berliner Weiss should be made without hops. To be called a beer, it had to have hops in it. So they were just, a little soupçon of hops.
Right. And a amuse-bouche of hops.
Yeah. Yep. I just introduced them to the worts, and my Tettnang last me forever because of it.
Okay.
They're frozen and vacuum sealed after each one.
Wow. Okay.
I just learned a lot from that. I've never made a kettle sour myself.
Super easy.
Yeah,
As
I
long
haven't
as you
either.
can hold the temperature,
It's on my list.
super easy. There's a really good episode of Western New York Brews where I talked to one of the local homebrewers or one of the local pro brewers, and he talked me through the whole thing.
I'll be tuning in.
Yeah. There was a brewery that opened up just before this whole quarantine went down, and they said they tagged me on Twitter like, we're trying our first kettle sour thanks to this episode. Like, that's amazing.
Wow, that's awesome.
No, it wasn't me. I mean, I was just the stupid one interviewing. That meant nothing towards Jason or George there. I'm sorry, but I was just, I was playing my role very well of not knowing anything and just letting him talk me through it. So it is very useful to listen to.
All right.
Do you want me to go into my second beer, or I'm sorry, you want to dive deep into this one more?
Well, as far as suggestions go, I feel like I really need to get educated on kettle sours to contribute.
Yeah, I'm out of my depth as well.
Yeah.
This is the one that I got to send you guys because it's the one that'll be ready next.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Unless it's terrible.
I love Berliner.
They're great beer. They're one of my favorite beers. And we always have a sour on tap at the house, and it's the left tap. Because even though there's no actual bugs getting in there, it is really acidic, and I will change that lime more often.
Yeah.
And we will throw some lime in there too, and you can catch it on the next beer, even after a good cleaning.
Oh, the
So
lime?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that left tap is always the sour tap. And then
So to be continued. Once I get educated, I do want to contribute feedback to this, but I need to learn first.
Yeah. Jason, we both need to make a sour, and then we'll do a sour episode.
yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's a couple of beers that I always go back to, but I like to have a Helles on tap.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay. Is that what we're talking about next?
sure. My Helles is nope. I can't go with this one because that was a thrown together Helles. Let me go with my official Helles one. The last one that I brewed, I've got all my recipes on here. The last one that I brewed, I must have had some extra ingredients in, so I just threw them in there. Okay, so yeah, Pilsner, Munich, and Vienna malt, but mostly Pilsner and Munich. Percentage-wise, 70% Pilsner, 20% Munich, 10% Vienna. And then Hallertau hops. I was going for an OG of a 1041, coming out to about 4.8% after bringing it down to maybe 1005.
Dry. Okay.
Yeah, Hallertau hops. And what was the yeast? Give me one moment. It's loading. 1 ounce of Hallertau. It's at the 60-minute boil, which brings it up to about 13 IBU. Why is my yeast not listed? One more second. I'm sorry. Oh, and it was the package 34. I think that's the lager yeast. Safe L 34.
3470.
3470.
Yep.
That is my go-to lager yeast.
Yeah,
Great one.
3470.
Yeah, very versatile and in a wide temperature range, so it's very easy to work with.
So can I tell you my well, I'll tell you mash was 149. So it was a very dry beer. And the
Yeah.
it was a 90-minute boil. I want to make sure I get everything out of the way before I tell you my fermentation, because that was the funnest part.
Question already.
Okay.
Were you using Pilsen malt?
Yeah.
You were. Okay, so that's why the 90-minute boil. Okay, got it.
Yeah, 70% Pilsner malt.
Got it.
Then 20%
Yeah.
Munich, 10% Vienna.
Got it.
149 mashed in. Nope, everything was normal there. So here's what I did. I put it in a glass carboy on this one. And I never used glass, but I did for this because I knew it was going to be in there for a long time and I didn't want to hold up any of my other ones. So I put it in a 6.5 gallon carboy. And then, because it was early spring, late winter, I brought it up to my attic. Now the attic stairs, the attic is not insulated. So the attic stairs right behind the door is about 50 degrees because there's a heated room right next to it. So I left it there for 2 weeks. And then once a week, I would move it up a couple of stairs until I got it up into the attic, where the attic was almost freezing, not freezing because it's early spring at this point, and left it there for maybe 3, maybe 4 months. Oh, I'm sorry. Before bringing it up to the attic total, I put it into a secondary to get it off of the yeast. Once it was off the stairs, it was off the yeast.
Sure.
And I never secondary anymore, but I did for this. We had just gotten back from Germany, and I wanted to do it right.
Let me ask a question about that. George and I started off as home brewers with the belief that everything needed a secondary, and throughout the years, we've learned that that's total crap.
Right.
I still am of the belief that if you're doing a proper German style lager, move it off a primary.
If you're gonna have it in there for a super
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah.
I still agree with that too.
I do
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
So I left it up in the attic at 30 or 40 degrees. You're not getting any sunshine up there. It was perfect, and it got a 40 or a 41 at competition, and I've
Nice.
never replicated that score in my fermentation chamber.
Wow.
So when I make my Helles, I have to bring it up into the attic. I couldn't make it right now because it's 85 degrees here today.
And your fermentation chamber won't get you that low?
No, it will.
Okay.
But for some reason, it just doesn't come out as good in my fermentation chamber
That is so interesting.
as it did on the stairs.
Can
Yeah.
I point out the fact that you cellared your beer in your attic? That just
Yes.
is entertaining to me for some reason.
Yep. That's a good point, right? But like I said, the attic is uninsulated. And I put out on Facebook and Twitter at that time, like, I need something to log temperatures, please. Anybody have anything that'll log temperatures overnight so I can see what the swing is at? And by the time it would have come in, it would have been too late. So I just let it ride. Like, let's go. Let's see what we're at.
I assume that you did a diacetyl rest before.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
You did it. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
It seems,
Hey, you know,
it seems counterintuitive that you haven't been able to replicate that.
I know. It bugs me too.
Additional temperature control.
It bugs me. I always wonder if it was something like just going down in the middle of the night, temperature going down, and then keeping it lower than I was. I don't know.
Yeah.
yeah.
Because when I got my score sheets back the next year on the same Helles, because I'm like, oh, this was good. Let's do this again.
Yeah.
And now I've got the fermentation chambers. It's going to be awesome. And no, it dropped like 10 points. I was in the low 30s, high 20s. on it, and I'm tasting it like I didn't think it was that different from the two, and maybe it was just the judges. But
Yeah,
Man,
could be that. Yeah,
wow, that's a hell of a story.
Yeah.
It really is.
it
it
was,
is.
like I said, it was coming back from Germany,
Yeah,
and when I came back from all I wanted to do was brew German beer
yeah.
for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
All I did was brew German and Belgian.
You went to a lot of
I get
trouble
that.
to make that beer the way that you did.
Yeah,
To gradually bring a fermenter up step by step,
I mean,
throughout.
it wasn't actually step by step. It was probably 4 steps, and then the next week another 4 steps. But yeah, it was.
Regardless.
Come on,
gradual.
no, you
That's a commitment right there.
don't ruin it. We're picturing you like,
Every 12 hours, I slowly
Right.
lifted it using a winch.
Manually monitoring the temperature with each step that's going up.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. Yeah, that's so I'm not sure what to. I mean, your recipe seems pretty solid. I like the inclusion of Vienna in there just because I like the flavor that gives.
Yeah, I agree.
And it sounds like you used a long lager method, which on that is going to be, spectacular. So
I don't think that's traditional.
yeah.
I don't know if Vienna lager or if Vienna is traditional in a Helles.
I don't think it is, but I'm a big fan of the flavor that can add even at subtle amounts. So
I'm with George on
yeah.
that one. I do think that'd be a nice addition to something like a Helles.
Yeah. Apparently
There's
it
a
was
couple
if
of
you got a
people that say
40.
that they do this. It got a 40
Yeah.
on that one. But again, when I tried to redo it, it died.
So
All right.
all right, did you have a third
poor
one?
guy.
No, that's fine. I have dozens of. I don't go back to too many recipes, so I have dozens of one-offs, and very few that I keep going back to. But my sour, my Helles, and there's an IPA that I keep going back to. That's fun because it has special B in it, which gives it a cool taste, a little bit maltier and a little bit sweeter, but it ruins the color.
Okay.
But otherwise, yeah. No, let's hear what you guys got.
All right.
Paulie?
Jason, up to
What's
you.
good?
You or Polly?
All right.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Go ahead, Polly.
All right, so I sent Jason some pictures. I don't know if he could post them or not, or I could just tell you what I did.
Where were they
I
posted?
I texted you them.
Okay. I will get these up, but it's gonna take me about a minute. So
All right, well, I'll just go ahead and I'll talk about the one that I never sent you. So I'm going to do this. I have this hazy that, I've won. Jason knows I've won a couple awards with this one, but it's all really fun to real. But it's fun, and I just like to hear other people's feedback, if that makes any kind of sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a hazy. This was a 5-gallon recipe of mine. I used 10 pounds of Golden Promise, a pound of Golden Naked Oats, pound of flaked oats, pound of flaked wheat, a pound of unmalted wheat, wherever I can get it from. My pop additions were 1 ounce of Citra, 15 minutes to go in the boiling, and a half ounces of Mosaic, same time. And then I whirlpooled 2 ounces of Cascade, 2 ounces of Mosaic, ounces Citra. And then in High Kreuzen, I dry hopped Cryo Cascade. And then after I secondary and pull all that stuff out of there, I use an ounce of Cryo Citra, Cryo Palisade, but can't find those anymore. So I need a good suggestion for that one. And another ounce of Cryo Mosaic that I did for like 3 to 5 days. And I used
Okay,
London
remind
3.
me. Remind me on the cryo thing. That's added alpha acids.
That's
Is that what
the
that is?
lupulin. No, have you heard?
Sorry?
Like the alpha acid. Have you know the lupulin hops? The alpha acids are pretty much double between because it's just the way they package the cryo hops.
Right.
They're cryogenically frozen, so that brings the alpha acids up a whole hell of a lot.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right. Okay.
And So, I mean, I know like the rule of thumb is if you can't find the cryo, just double up on regular hops, but then you have all that trube in there.
All that true.
Even if you don't let it set long enough, you get that hop burn. You almost gotta let a hazy sit for a couple of days. Although what I found is I cold crash before I keg, and I let it sit overnight in my fridge all overnight. And the beautiful thing about it is, next thing you know, I keg it. I can start carbonating right away because it's already cold. I don't have to let it sit for 2 days.
Isn't a New England the
Okay.
one beer that you don't want to cold crash though?
I don't know. I've started learning that because it's good when you're getting ready to keg it. I mean, it's kind of hard unless you're hop socking. I don't like hop socks because they just sit there and float at the top.
Mm.
And there's a couple other ways you could do it, like try and get the hop matter out. I don't have a filter or anything like that, but when you cold crash it, all the hops drop to the bottom, like in a primary. And if you secondary it the right way, you won't get all that trube in there. I can't tell you how many times I've had to clean out dip tubes at farmers markets or the Frankfurt Bluegrass Festival because so much hop trube is in there to clog my dip tube. Here I am, people are hanging out. I'm ripping the post off, pulling the poppet out, and hopefully I could get a little bit of CO2 to blow it clear, and then pour beer. So I'm just out trying to avoid getting all that hop matter in your beer.
Does it still stay hazy when you do that?
Yes, it does.
All right.
It's very hazy. I mean, go back to that one. You got them. That's my brown ale, actually. Yeah, let's talk about that one. I kind of like to get your opinions on that.
I'll keep going. What's the title?
What?
He said he didn't send you the one he's talking about.
What's the title of it?
No, I didn't. No, it's not on there. I never sent it to you. It's I just sent you a couple more, and one of them, since we're also that one right there. Back up. One more. Very first one. Not that one. Not that one. Nope.
These are the pages
That
I have.
one. No. Go back to the other one. It's all handwritten because this is a beer that
Hoppy Ever After.
we got. Yeah, let's talk about that one because it's a pale ale that I did, and this was a very first beer that I started using software. You got to keep in mind when I wrote all my own recipes, I was very naive to the internet and websites and recipe builders and stuff like that. So I had a basic recipe that was given to me that was just 2-row, some 60, and some victory. And I had the golden naked oats, and hold on, I got that. There we go. Nope, not that one. Nope, not that one. There we go. I added golden naked oats and honey malt to it. So I was following. This was the very first recipe I had software for, and I was following APA category. I use like 9 grams of Citra just to keep the IBUs down, and then I did an ounce at 20, and then an ounce and a half at Flame Out, and then I dry hopped with another ounce or ounce and a half. But then after a while, one time I was making this beer, I accidentally put some sours in there because I was doing 2 or 3 secondaries at the same time, and I go to pull out the sours, like, oh no, that's in that beer. We'll see how it turns out. And you know what? That's honestly been like a secret weapon for this beer. I tried making it without the sauce. Maybe it's a mental thing, but I mean, that's really all I got. I've always used 1272 on it. So you got any suggestions?
If it works, put the sauce back in. You know, I mean, plutonium was discovered accidentally too.
Oh, sauce is definitely going to be there. You just got I couldn't find the actual recipe with that. You got to keep in mind the book I'm going through is 10 years old. So
Yeah. So I see your strike temp was 166. With the grains that you have, was your mash temp somewhere around 152, 153, somewhere in there?
154.
154.
154.
Okay.
Yeah, 54.
I've never used
60.
golden naked oats. What kind of flavor does that give it?
Okay, so this is, I'm sure Jason and George know about this. When I was learning to brew at Flossmoor Station, they use this in a lot of beer. It gives you like a peanut flavor, like a nutty peanut
Interesting.
flavor. Like when you like,
Did
it was
not know
funny because like we would keep in mind the very first time I'm using this grain, I'm mashing in a full 50-pound sack of it,
Mhm.
and the brew house at Flossmoor is only maybe 6 feet above the mash tun. And then as soon as it all gets in there, the whole brew house smells like peanuts. And when you actually eat it, it tastes like peanuts.
Okay, so
So
it's not
that's
like a
I-
sweetness. It's not adding a sweetness to it. It's adding,
Nutty.
More of a flavor.
it's adding something else to it. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was wondering with the high mash temp, and I'm trying
Is
to.
that-
I think the
figure out-
mash. I think that's just what we had because at the time we were doing very primitive. This was the date on it is from 2012, so this is way before I learned about temperature control and hey, how you can raise and lower your mash temperature before your mash,
Right.
if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So,
So-
any ideas?
You know what the IBUs come out to, because Citra is not in a very, very aggressive bittering hop. So I mean, and I'm assuming you're going. It says pale ale. Okay, so yeah. What did what did the IBUs come out to? Do you know?
Well, at this time, I don't. I mean, I could spend a few minutes to put it here on Beersmith on my phone and figure it out. But at this time, I didn't know any way to calculate IBUs. I was going on flavor profile type of deal. Like, all right, we're going to try it this way. The whole artist in me, like we had the conversation we had before. All right, we're going to try this. Hope, like me and my buddy Brian, we always had the whole thing. Like we would go the whole pressure luck as we were getting ready to camp it. No whammy, no whammy, no whammy. Stop. And find out. In 3
Yeah.
weeks,
Well, you called it
if we
happily.
What?
You called it happily ever after. Was it sufficiently hoppy the way you wanted it to be?
It was, but see, the whole name behind the beer is I have a very close friend. She was getting married, so my wedding gift to her was I made her a 5-gallon batch and bottled it. Like I started with the recipe that she had, that she gave me, and this is what I've changed from that. And before it was, like I said, it was literally just 2 rows, 60, and Victory. I added the size. I think I did change the yeast because I think it was typical American ale. I had a 1272 kick, and then the Golden Naked Oats and the Honey Malt. Those were the changes that I made from the recipe that was given to me. What do you think, Jason? Should I change anything?
I got a couple of suggestions. First thing I'll mention, this looks like an early New England recipe at first glance, and maybe I'm saying that I just see the down in your boil time notes. Your third edition is 15 minutes chiller and whirl flock, and I keep reading that as whirlpool, which seems, of course, strangely appropriate for a new. I keep battling with myself to try to take myself out of reading a New England recipe. Okay,
well,
but regardless, what was your original gravity on this? Do you know?
Actually, our target, because I think I did put. Actually, no, I did put this in my phone. This was like 10 phones ago.
Yeah,
I have a note. If you look on the bottom, it says, "Oh, it didn't get that one." My target was 1060. I ended up with 1062. My final was 08.
1060,
You know,
1062, and 08. Oh, okay. Oh, 1062 is your original gravity, and it fermented down to 008.
correct.
That's really surprising considering the volume of oh shit.
The volume of grains, or
Not the volume of grains, the volume of specialty malts. I'm sorry.
okay.
I mean, looking at this, Crystal 60 is not fermentable.
Yeah.
Victory, I believe, is not fermentable. Honey, Honey malt, I don't believe, and naked oats certainly are not. So that was going to be my one suggestion on this is I think you have one, maybe two too many specialty malts in this. So
Okay.
I would suggest taking a hard look. And I kind of understand why you chose each of these. You're trying to generate a particular flavor. So I think you may just have to choose and scale that down a little bit. And then with whatever that subtraction is that you make, I would kick up your base malt. And I think at only 10 pounds of 2-row, I think you've got some room to grow.
Okay. All right. That's great. Thank you.
Fair?
I appreciate it. Scott, you got any suggestions on this one?
I'm sorry for missing most of the last half of this, but no, I like I said, I've never even had golden naked oats, so I have no idea what this would taste like.
I guess you're gonna have to, next time you go to the store, just buy yourself
I know,
some.
right? I'm gonna have to try some.
Definitely eat some before you mash it. I'll tell you that. Definitely,
right? Always.
You always have to do that. I always, with a brand new grain, I do that all the time. I always eat a little bit of it.
No, even grains I already know. You gotta keep it fresh.
Oh
Yeah.
This one.
Where am I going now, Paulie?
I was gonna say, Paulie's muted.
That one right there.
Here. Okay.
I know, right? We're all.
This was one recipe that. Here we go. Make sure it's the right notes I'm looking at. Oh, go back. But it's a recipe that when I was making when Brian was on recently, he was a brewer at Flossmoor, okay? Actually, and like I said, this was before I actually had any kind of computer figure out how to do it. So what I would do, like I had a computer, but I didn't know anything about it. But what I would do is I would just go online and look at a database and build the recipe off of that. Mm-hmm. So this is the very first time I did this. It was funny because we were at a tapping the night before, and I fell in love with this beer. And I was the next morning I'm up on the computer and I built this recipe and I was at Brew and Grow and I made this. And then I made it again later, like 7 or 8 months later. The only thing I changed was instead of using, because it was okay. So when I did this first recipe, it was in the winter. It was January. It was actually our first brew day of the year. It was January. It was cold. It was one of those cold Januaries, and I use a room. This is way before. I found it. Way before I knew about temperature control, fermentation chambers, or anything like that. And so I used a room that I was monitoring for a few days and kept it around 45 degrees. So I did a primary with it. And it got cold, so I brought it in for a day or two. And then I put it back out. And then I came in, I secondaried it and lagered it, and then I dry hopped it. Now that I'm looking at my notes, it kind of cracks me up. I dry hopped it for a month. But long story short, it only ended up being like a 3.5% beer. But it was amazing because at the time we were taking notes on when we filled it and when we drank it. We carbonated it on 2/19/21. It tasted great. And on 2/21/11, we ran out of beer. And I do
Well, at 3%, you can have a bunch of them.
After that, right?
Yeah. Well, I know because let me look. I don't even know we didn't even take gravities. There's no gravity readings on here. So we may have been drinking and forgot to take that stuff. Oops. But you got to keep in mind you keep hearing me flip through this notebook. That's what happened. So I mean, I'm all open to suggestions.
Well-
I was told to stay with Noble hops. So, is Simcoe, Mount Hood, Magnum, Chinook? No, I don't think Chinook's a Noble. I don't think Simcoe's a Noble either.
Magnum's not either.
But-
And Magnum is a high alpha.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
And
a
then my
bittering
orig-
hop. Yeah.
but this was like, you know, like the whole session ales. Like I accidentally created myself a session ale. It was only like 3.5%. I remember the reason why we ran out of beer the day after it was ready. It was a 2011 Daytona 500, and I'm like, this is actually good. I had this Budweiser mug, it was like 40-ounce mug. I'm sitting there watching the race, just drinking 40 ounces of homebrew, like, yeah, go cars. So yeah, I mean, like I said, the only time I ever changed this, I used the 2112 recipe. So I'm all open to suggestions on that, because the 2112 I can ferment at like 68 degrees, so I can kick my house down a few more degrees, no big deal.
So if I understand why you're writing this up, is the 5 pound, is that 5? Yeah. Okay. The pound sign is 5 pounds.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
5 pounds of 6-row, 3 pounds of 2-row, pound of carapils, 3 pounds of flaked rice, and a pound of Vienna.
I'm going to adopt that. Anytime I need to write a pound, I'm just going to put that number sign.
Hmm.
I'm in.
It's literally called the pound sign.
Don't be stealing my idea.
That's why. I admit, I have never brewed with 6-row.
Mhm.
And George, I think you and I talked about this fairly recently, especially when we were talking about the historical beers. The Kentucky Common recipe, I think that was the main base malt for that.
Okay. You know, honestly,
We
I've
lose-
never
we
brewed
lose
with
George again.
except for
We did.
he got lost. Yeah.
Hey George.
Oh, he's coming back.
Yes.
I'm
Hey George.
I'm here.
When we
I'm
reviewed
here.
when we reviewed the when we reviewed the Kentucky Common recipes, wasn't 6-row the main base malt for that?
I do remember in the historic one, yeah, 6-row was, yeah.
That's what I remember as well. Okay.
And I was kind of like following a traditional lager recipe, but using my own hop schedule.
Yeah. Okay.
Because have you ever had the whole IPL craze that happened a few years ago? It was very short-lived.
Yeah.
It was amazing because it was great and hoppy like an IPA, but then it lingered off real quick. You didn't have that back of your taste buds on your way home. Like, I still taste those Chinook or Columbus hops still lingering in the back of my taste bud, in the back of my throat on my way home.
I never had an IPL that like screamed out at me, "Wow, this is amazing."
Well, yeah. All right.
And I guess that's all.
I think I'm gonna have to get to work here, Jason.
What's that?
Because I'm gonna have to get to work on that. So give me a few months. I'll figure it out for you.
Well, that and your Malort cologne, right? And
Oh, speaking of Malort, did you see what they did? Did you see what Revolution did? They donated a bunch of almost sale kegs of Anti-Hero
Yeah.
to Malort,
I
and
did
they
see that,
yeah, no, we're not.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that. That's just blasphemous.
I thought about the 4 of us right away when I saw that. I had to say something, so sorry.
Just blasphemous. Oh man. So
Well, can I?
is that all yours, Polly?
That's all mine. That's the 3 I wanted. So, like, the one I was gonna put up there was my brown ale, but I mean,
We
I
can look
guess
at
that
that.
one. Yeah, is that the one? That's the one I sent you. The 2 texts of. It was just a screenshot of my beer smith.
This is the one with the Marisada, right?
Correct.
You know what?
Hold on.
This would be a good one to talk about because this resembles one of the beers that I was hoping to talk about. Okay.
All right.
So let's see. George keeps getting knocked off. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, the Mirror's Otter, the Crystal 80, chocolate,
Yeah.
honey, right? All right.
Yeah.
So
All right. Can you guys
this
see?
is the beer. I could see it. I'm actually looking at my phone now. So
Scott,
Scott, can you
see it?
see that?
Yes.
Cool. All right.
So
All right. Starting from right from the top, I am a big fan of Maris Otter. And you're making a
Okay.
brown ale. This is a dark beer, so I like your starting point. I anytime I brew a stout or a porter, that is my go-to.
okay.
So you've
And then
got
I got some 80, chocolate, honey. This was a 10-gallon batch. Yeah. Just so that's the high number. That's a 10-gallon batch I was making.
okay, got it. 2 pounds of brown
Uh,
sugar. Okay, got it.
And then you go down the next one. That's a whole hop schedule. But this actually was the recipe that I made and won the Flossboard competition with.
Really? Okay.
That they made me change. They actually made,
Yeah,
They
I remember that story for sure.
this was a recipe that they made that I submitted. So I'm welcome to suggestions. I really am. I mean, I'm not too proud to beg. So I mean, I know what I've done with it. So I would still love to hear your guys' input on it.
What you said? This was a brown ale.
Yes, an American brown
Okay.
ale. Which is okay. So George, when you and Scott get your beer, hopefully by Thursday, because I've dropped it in the mail on Friday. This was a beer that I'm sending out for you guys that that we're talking to the brewer from Flossmoor from. This is a clone of that beer.
Okay. And obviously, this is a 10-gallon recipe, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with Jason. I'm a big fan of the Maris Otter in brown ales and porters and stouts and things. I think it lends a really good character to that.
Yeah, it's a lot better than using 2-row or pale malt,
Yeah. Jason, scroll up a bit, or whatever the other picture is.
Right. I don't know if I've ever seen brown sugar
There we
in,
go.
in a brown ale.
It's dark brown sugar that we use.
Right.
And actually,
So I've not.
the recipe that I'm
No, go ahead.
the recipe that I'm using here is actually a recipe that I pulled out of Marty Nature's book, Homebrewing for Dummies. And it just so happened, like, because, I've known the beer scene out here for so long, I realized it was this is actually a Charlie Orr winning beer that I've made changes to. Like, I added the flaked oats and the honey malt. Yeah, I had the flaked oats and the honey malt. Those are the only things I added to it. This was a Charlie Orr gold medal winner. I'm sitting here just getting brewing, and I'm a big Flossmoor fan because this is before all the South Suburbs breweries were there, and that was my local brewery. I'm going through the book. I'm like, Todd Ashman, really? Do I know what we got? And then I saw him a few years later, and I asked him about, he's like, this is a basic recipe that we made the brown ale with, the Pullman. And then I start working on it, and then I won the Flossmoor Homebrew competition last year, which I still think is rigged, but whatever. I still won. I got to be there.
So, the one thing that stands out to me is between the brown sugar, the flaked oats, and the honey malt, it screams sweet. Does it come out as really sweet?
Not really. I mean, it doesn't.
No?
I use a no. I actually the honey sweetens it up a little bit more. I mean, from the basic, like I said, those are the two that I started with, and it's not really a sweet beer at all, because the one change, like I've actually looked at the recipe book from Flossmoor, and we're very close to being the same thing. But the only real one of the differences I can admit is instead of using dark brown sugar, they use molasses. in it
Okay.
because molasses is cheaper.
Yeah, and
Molasses.
And
basically
That's
liquid dark brown sugar. Yeah.
yeah. Well, no, we never put liquid. We just dump dark brown sugar 2 pounds from food for less.
No.
Dump
Yeah,
it
no,
in.
I know. I'm saying molasses is basically liquid dark brown sugar. So
Correct.
yeah, that makes sense.
you're
Yeah.
Okay, now I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Sure. What would you prefer?
Whatever's on the top shelf.
Okay.
So yeah, that's all. I mean, if you guys have any suggestions on that, I would love to hear them. But
I would love to try it because, like I said, it to me, just looking at the recipe, I think it's going to come out as sweet and maybe a little aggressively full bodied for a brown ale.
Okay.
But I'd love to try it.
Yeah.
all right, well then that's something I'll have to brew soon. How about that?
Sure.
Okay.
Actually, well, you're going to be able to taste the original recipe when the mail comes to you and Scott.
Okay.
Right on. Okay.
All right.
Like I wanted to kind of throw this on this one because like I love the new brewer and we actually had to work together on when I brewed it. I actually tried getting bottles of because we had to change the recipe, which I still have. We worked on it together and we brewed it together and I tried getting bottles, but he said they were sold out like 2 months ago. So I was like, sorry guys, we're getting the other brown ale.
That's
Just
all right.
we can talk to these guys on Thursday. Jason, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Up to you. Bring us home, Jason.
All right. I want to talk about a double IPA first. And here we go. This is the one that I exported to a Word document, so we can go through this a little bit in a little bit more detail. But I'm not sure if this is totally complete. No, it's not. Crap. Oh boy. Sorry, guys.
All good. I'll be right back. I have to use the restroom.
That one easy.
Yeah, we'll talk about personal recipe.
Is it in Beersmith?
Yep. Sharing.
Okay. Ah, there you go. Okay.
All right. This is a double IPA that I've made at least 3 or 4 different iterations of, and I will continue to make it each summer at least. So this is a double IPA that does have dry hop additions. This is a beer that I've learned a lot from, but certain versions of this I think have been better than others. So I'm open to all feedback on this. The original version of this recipe, there was a contribution from our good friends at Metal Monkey, which I'm very grateful for. Hats off to you guys for that. But starting from the top, the grain bill is a lot of 2-row and 6 ounces of caramel crystal and then 6 ounces of victory. And some corn sugar, which is another fermentable. So looking just at this grain bill next to what Paulie just showed us, 95% of this grain bill is all fermentable. So the volume of specialty malt is particularly low. Coming down to the hops, it is a 90-minute boil. So the bittering hops are 2 separate editions of Columbus, one at 90 and one at 45. And then the aroma hop additions at the end of the boil are Cascade, Amarillo, and Simcoe. No Whirlpool additions. Whirlflock, of course, because I include that in every recipe. I have 2 of really the same yeast in this, 1056 and US05, which of course are the same American ale yeast strain. It's a fairly flavor neutral, easy to use yeast, and traditionally will get the job done. So here's what the measurements come out to in the overall double IPA scale.
I'm having a hard time reading it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I can I zoom?
You're off the double IPA style guidelines. That's an aggressive amount of alcohol. Does this come out as hot sometimes?
I mean, listen, it's a double IPA, so go big or go home.
True. There is such a thing as too much
I got
alcohol,
tasted
even in a double IPA, though.
Excuse me.
Beg to differ. I'm kidding. No point. Your point is well taken.
Hey, Jason, is this the one that you and I have talked about, like in the past couple years? Like you've sent me messages and whatnot, and like I've given you a few suggestions. Like you showed me, like I was brewing, and you're showing me your phone. Is this the same one, or is it those other recipes, or do you remember?
I believe this is the same one. Yes, this has
Okay.
been this
Okay.
has been a repeat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Is the 90-minute boil there to facilitate an extra hop addition?
It's to facilitate the IBUs.
Right. Okay. So you could do a 90.
Yeah, I guess that's a good idea. Like if I wanted to shorten the boil to 60 minutes, I would just have to double down on the hop addition or on the bittering hops.
Right. And-
right
yeah.
at 60. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that's a good idea?
I think so. I mean, because I've done
Yeah.
like 60. I've done like 75 and 80-minute boils, and I'm like, really? Like I did, in my experimentation, I've done a few of them to where it's like it didn't really matter once it was done.
Yeah.
I did a side by side, like at the time of my heyday of brewing, like we were like, all right, screw it, let's try it this way, and then we tried it. We did 2 separate batches back to back, and they came up about the same time, and there was no real difference. I mean, like to me, like your bittering hops that long, it just raises your IBUs.
Yeah.
You want your IBUs to be higher. You just manipulate your boil time, and your bittering addition.
No, that's fair. That's fair advice.
I mean, if you want to cut a half hour of your brew day, I
Yeah.
suggest that.
Okay. it is a long brew day, so yeah, that's well taken. I remember bringing up Columbus when we did the episode with Yakima hops, and I got kind of leered at after I said that. It was like, really? That's your go-to bittering hop? And my only argument in its favor is that it's just been a reliable bittering hop that I've always trusted going to.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, like for this recipe, it's always worked, and I don't see any reason to deviate away from it.
And then actually, now that I think about it, if you bring your boil time down, you might bring your top. What's the very top one that's in the red? Is that the IB?
No, that's the original gravity alcohol.
Okay, that might bring your OG down into
It
the
will.
green.
That is true. Yeah, it will, because you're going to have more volume.
Yep.
Okay.
And you're not boiling all that concentration. And if you're like, I always try, like when I build my recipes, I love these whole little things. Like the very first time I had,
Yes. I agree.
I had beer tools, and then I got another one I can get from my phone, and it was amazing because I could just sit there and watch TV and build recipes like the Happily Ever After. That's what I did. Like I actually transferred because I knew that phone wasn't going to last forever. So I transferred that to this beer Bible of mine that we were just talking about. And the very first time I did that, I almost kind of want to put that in a competition just to see what it does. Because I think you've actually tried it, Jason. This is the early days of JBG.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So
Any other?
all right,
Any other comments on this one?
Kat, you got any comments? George?
Jason,
All right,
yeah, Jason, my thing with the 60-minute boil was not necessarily to increase the volume and reduce the alcohol, but that I find with a 60-minute boil, unless a 90-minute boil is necessary, a 60-minute boil will allow you to have a better consistency. So I know one of the things you're not really fond of is the consistency level you've been able to achieve with this. So I'm wondering if a shorter boil time will help with that. So there's less time for things to have some variability.
Point well taken. That makes a lot of sense.
No, that's a great point. It really is, yeah. I mean, I guess the only thing I can say is you're going to have to experiment with it. Do one batch up with the suggestion, see what you think. I mean, that's it.
Yeah, so I mean, if you dial it down to a 60-minute recipe, dial back on the the water and the grains and everything. Scale it appropriately to a 60-minute recipe. But
Yeah.
I think you can keep the same amount of alcohol and the same IBUs and everything. Just make some adjustments to have it conform more to a 60-minute boil.
Cool. No, that makes perfect sense. What about the aroma hop additions? Am I being-
Well, you know me and Cascade.
I like Cascade. What Cascade and what?
I love
I can't
Cascade.
see.
Amarillo. and-
Amarillo and Simcoe.
You see, those are old school hops that I love, but all these other new additions out there, besides Citra, like you got Mosaic and the Cashmere, and I just found out about this new hop called Zappa, and it was funny because right before the shutdown, I'll go down this room hole real quick. Right before the shutdown, we had a home brewer come into the store. He's like, "Have you ever heard of Zappa hops?" I'm like, "No, what? The family's making hops now?" And all the everybody that's working in the store is Zappa fans. And then the manager's like, "Yeah, they're growing them in Montana." And we just started losing it. I'm like, "Yeah, sorry, we don't have it." And then I actually did some research. These are some Mexican hops that Yakima bought from. I guess their origin is like the desert area, like New Mexico and Arizona, where they crawl and they work their way up cactuses.
Oh.
So, like, I actually watched a whole Yakima video today before this about that.
Okay.
So
I'll send you guys
Jason, the
links
only from a aroma hop, stance, the only one that really stands out to me is the Simcoe. I'm wondering if that might benefit from a more flavor forward hop, like a cashmere or something like that, to help bring out some more variety in your hop notes. Especially Simcoe, like Polly said, is like an old school hop that is reliable, but it's also a little one note. So I'm wondering if you replace that with something that might add a little bit more hop character to it, if it might be it might contribute more to that.
Okay. No, that's good advice too. Thank you. I didn't know a lot about cashmere until fairly recently. Revolution did on their superhero series, or is that what it was called, Paulie? What was that
I
series?
think it's called the Hero Pack, which changes every time it comes out. There's usually one different beer in that pack. I think it's called the Hero Pack or Hero Series. Yeah,
yeah, we're talking about the same thing. Yeah, but there is a cashmere. There is a beer that calls out a cashmere hop edition there, and to me, I think it's the best beer that they have in that Hero Series. So,
and if I'm not mistaken, the Hero Series are all smashes. If I'm not mistaken, when they do the Hero Series, it's either I think they're smash. If not, they definitely has one hop, and that's what they're showcasing when they're doing that batch of that.
that's a good question.
Huh.
All right,
You know what?
yeah,
You know what? I'll follow up on that. I might be able to get that answer because I
Yeah.
know a guy that worked for Revolution, so I might be able to find that answer for
Sure.
you. I'm not going to look it up now, but we'll bring it up in the next episode.
Sure. Yeah. So, anyways, but to your point, George, I think that would be an exciting addition to throw that in there.
Yeah, change it up. There's so many new hops coming out there. You almost can't keep up with all the new stuff coming up.
Believe me, yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And then the sad thing about that is that's where I haven't used Amarillo and Simcoe in 5 years, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I'm trying all the new stuff.
yeah.
Like I still use Cascade, but I haven't used Amarillo, Simcoe, Cascade. I haven't used Columbus in a while. I haven't used many. Have you guys ever used the whole 7C hop that was around for a while? It was a mixture of all the C hops like Citra, Cascade,
No,
Columbus. It was like a mix. It was like a mixed between all those hops, and they made pellets of them. It was actually really cool.
I have not tried that. No. Yeah.
7C.
I think 7Cs is called. If it's still available, I would get it. It was available like 4 or 5 years ago. If it's still available, I would totally try that for fun.
Cool.
Just a single hop with it. Like whenever I've been brewing and I get a new hop, I either do a smash or I do just a basic recipe with base grain, 60, and then those hops, and see what we got from it.
Thanks for the advice, guys. Much appreciated.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
George, especially a thank
Yeah.
you to you. This was really an awesome show idea, and this is one I think we should come back to.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
I think we circle back to this every once in a while.
Yeah, and I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have another one you want to talk about?
I don't.
Okay.
Aw.
Yeah. No, I think oh, you know what? What the hell?
Yeah, one more.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
All right, okay.
Encore.
I want to talk about Scotch ales.
Free bird.
Yeah. So, okay, Scotch ale a Scotch ale may be my favorite style of beer. Yet every single time, barring maybe once with George, every time I brew a Scotch ale, something goes horribly wrong.
It's funny. This is one of my least favorite beer styles.
Really?
It
And
is.
I've never brewed when I like Scotch ales too. Holy cow!
Oh, George, I think you and I are on our own on this.
Drinking one right now.
I do like a good Scotch ale, but I've never brewed one.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Isn't Robert brewed Scotch ale?
No, Robert the Bruce is a double IPA, isn't it?
No.
Are you sure about that? No, I don't think so. And
I
Robert
think-
the Bruce would
I
make
think-
sense as a Scotch ale because, Robert the Bruce.
Yeah, hold on. We could have some fun with this because I remember years ago, I was before I started figuring out when I was online trying to figure it out, I found a Robert the Bruce clone. So let me see if I can find it.
I wonder how that compares to my Wee Heavy recipe. Just looking that up.
Screw you guys and your technology. I'm going through a notebook. Hold on.
Keep
So,
I gotta
okay, so you have Golden Promise. Okay, go ahead.
never mind. Go ahead.
Oh, it's very similar to mine. Although, all right, so you have Golden Promise, Roasted Barley, DME, and then you have Columbus,
Found it.
Fuggle, and Scottish Ale. Mine is Golden Promise, Roasted Barley, and then I just have EKG and Scottish Ale.
Okay.
So my recipe's a little bit leaner than yours. So the uh
So I went
the
back
DME.
to this bittering hop.
You did, which is fine. I went just EKG 2 ounces at 60 minutes. So you went a little bit. Yeah, you went to the Tomahawk as your bittering, and then you used Fuggle as your. Yeah, that's not a problem. Those are English hops. That's fine.
Right.
You did the DME, and I did. So instead of the DME, I did 18 pounds of the pale malt. So was the DME?
Just a bull.
What was the
That's it. Yeah.
Right, but instead of just using a crap ton of grains, you used DME. Was there a reason for that?
So yeah, because of equipment limitations. So this is where you have only a 10-gallon cooler for a mash tun, where it becomes limiting.
So just so you know, I did this in the same 10-gallon cooler you have, so it is possible.
Okay. All right.
It does get towards the top of said 10-gallon cooler,
Yeah.
but it is possible. Yeah.
Well, did you do away with the sparge?
Let's find out. Nope.
No,
I did the double infusion. I had a 2-gallon fly sparge on it, so no. So it's doable.
Okay. Interesting.
So what was it about this that you weren't fond of when it came out?
Not that I haven't been fond of, but I've always missed my numbers, and something has just gone wrong on brew day. It's just it's one of those styles that I have not gotten right. That's it.
Sounds like one of those styles that along the lines of what I was saying at the very beginning of this stream, refining it and refining our ability. It might be a good one for you to go back to and
I agree.
and try again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I want to get it right because this is really a style that I'm a big fan of.
Yeah. No, I am too.
Yeah. Well, challenge accepted.
Good.
After I looked at my Robert the Bruce clone, it's nothing like a real Scotch ale. So it's got 10 pounds of 2-row, a pound of Munich, a pound of 60, 2 pounds of Melanoidin, chocolate malt, Centennial, Pearl, and then ESB.
What's the Three Floyds beer that's the double IPA that somehow I'm mixing up with this Robert the Bruce?
You think of the Arctic Panzer Wolf?
I don't think so.
There's so many Three Floyd beer. Do you want to go down this rabbit hole?
No. I'm just saying, no, they have one. They have a double IPA that I'm mixing up with this Robert the Bruce.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. I don't remember what it is though.
Okay.
I will say the mash tun volume needed, according to Beersmith, and I think this is pretty accurate to what I remember.
Yes.
It was 9.41 gallons of the 10 gallons available.
Yeah.
So it was right up there, you know.
Hence, equipment limitations.
Yeah. If you're not willing to push your equipment to its very maximum.
Well, thank you for the advice and thank you for the challenge. Challenge accepted. Yeah.
All right.
Happen. All right, gentlemen. We're coming up to the 8 o'clock hour. Time to close up.
I gotta get a beer. I'll cheers you.
All right.
All right.
All right. Well, before we close up, we'll send out our social media links. Check us out at www.aniceplacetobrew.com. Our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Nice Place to Brew and A Nice Place to Brew. Our podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and all the major podcasting platforms. A Nice Place to Brew. We have more than 40 episodes that deal heavily with craft beer and also topics like we talked about tonight about recipe refinement, brew day stories, all the stuff that home brewers want to learn about. So check us out there. And we do this webcast every Monday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, regardless of whether or not there's a holiday or not. So thank you very much for tuning in. Check us out this Thursday at the same time on the same YouTube channel. All right. Raise a glass, everybody. It takes a lot of good beer to make great beer. And happy Memorial
Cheers,
everybody. Cheers.
Well, there, guys. All right, we out?
Yep, we're out. Sorry to run, guys.
All right.
You gotta pee like it's nobody's business.
All right, sir.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
Go ahead.
Bye.
Bye.
So
What's
I
up,
got nothing. How are you? I got
Doing it.
some Yingling for us Illinois people.
Okay, great. It's no problem for us to get it. I'm going to pick up some Genesee and get it in the mail tomorrow for you and Jason. And
John Bitterman.
Sorry?
John Bitterman. We need 6 of them.
6? Okay, not a problem. I'll get a 6-pack.
If you just send him a Bitterman, or sorry, Jason, just have
That was
Jason
my
do
plan.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to send them all to Jason. Yeah.
Yeah. Him and I talk. We're only like 23 minutes away from each other, so.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I'll send them to Jason. And then did we ever figure out what the fourth one was? It was Genesee Hands, Yingling, and what else? Was it Ice House? Did we confirm
Yeah,
that?
I would say Ice House just because we're going to go back to your.
Ice House?
Yeah. Quiet, Rick. No, we're going to go. I have a brew story to go back to it. I actually, I like when me and Jason were talking, I listened to the little round table for you, Jason, and your buddy going through this. And I'm definitely going to call out, okay, you guys we all didn't spend $5 for us to sit around and drink this beer and have some fun with that, too. Kind of revert back to the old episode because I listened to it. I thought it was funny as hell. Or you guys were a liquor store, you're like, all right, we're just going to get a tall boy of each one and we're going to split it between us. But no, we all live across the country and we're shipping beer. I think that's fucking fun.
And we are giving away some trade secrets here because Jason did not hit the end of end of stream. Yeah, but I'm attempting to log in to rectify that at the moment.
Okay, I'll just not say anything else. I'm gonna smoke. Oh, Scott, how are you?
Good. I'm doing all right.
Dude. If you guys wanna come play next year, we might have a couple spots for you.
Yeah, I
For
sure
the-
hope that we can play